Toss-up number 1, math. In set theory, a function that takes the union of its input and the empty set is this type of function. The least common multiple of 1 and an input is also this type of function, which for matrices is a square matrix with ones on the diagonal and zeros everywhere else. Adding 0 and multiplying by 1 are also, for 10 points, what type of function that simply returns its input? Toss-up number 2, fine arts. This composer's Opus 44 includes the movement For All Flesh is as Grass and was partially inspired by Robert Schumann's suicide attempt. A rendition of Gaudeamus Igitur closes a medley of student tunes he wrote in response to receiving an honorary degree. He utilized texts from the Lutheran Bible in his German Requiem. For 10 points, name this German composer of the Academic Festival Overture, known for his lullaby. Toss-up number 3, social studies. This nation's War Measures Act was invoked after the 1970 kidnappings of 2 officials by members of the FLQ, one of whom, Pierre Laporte, was eventually strangled. The act's invocation, which followed a request by Provincial Premier Robert Bourassa, was directed by Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. For 10 points, name this nation where the October crisis led to a loss of public support for Front de Libération du Québec. Toss-up number 4, math. If the D'Alembert test or the root test give a result greater than 1, this result is indicated. It is also implied by the integral test not giving a defined result. Terms approaching 0 are necessary but not sufficient for this property, as the harmonic series does not have it. In general, it means that a sequence of partial sums has no limit. For 10 points, name this property of a series that doesn't converge. Toss-up number 5, science. The heat current over the input value for this quantity gives the coefficient of performance for a refrigerator. An optical quantity with this name is the reciprocal of a lens's focal length. In mechanics, the dot product of force and velocity gives this quantity. In a circuit component, it equals the voltage drop times the current. For 10 points, name this rate at which work is done, which is measured in watts. Toss-up number 6, science. In cumulines, 3 or more of these entities are adjacent. Linus Pauling described them as bent equivalent hybrids. The modern picture is that the alignment of p orbitals provides rotational stability. Functional groups can be on the same or opposite sides in their cis and trans isomers. Alkenes are defined as having, for 10 points, what kind of bond with a sigma and a pi component that is shorter than a single bond? Toss-up number 7, miscellaneous. Guy Haynes and Charles Anthony Bruno met in one of these in a Patricia Highsmith novel about a double murder adapted by Alfred Hitchcock. Rene Magritte painted one emerging from a fireplace in Time Transfixed. Casey Jones died trying to stop one, and Anna Karina commits suicide under one. Gladys Knight sang about a midnight one to Georgia. For 10 points, name this form of transportation run in the U.S. by Amtrak. Toss up number 8, social studies. In this text, Sherem falls unconscious after challenging God. The tree of life appears in a vision to Lehi in this text, which includes the books of Omni and Nephi. It describes how the Jaredites travel after the fall of the Tower of Babel to America and write down their struggles on golden plates. The prophet Moroni helped Joseph Smith compile, for 10 points, what text used in a religion practiced by many Utahns. Toss up number 9, fine arts. This sculptor's image of the bald prophet Habakkuk was nicknamed Lo Zukane. His 1453 sculpture of Mary Magdalene was carved from white poplar wood in the church of Or San Michele. In Florence, contains his statue of St. George. He also cast the first freestanding nude statue since antiquity, an effeminate figure holding a sword and standing over Goliath's head. For 10 points, name this creator of a bronze David. Toss up number 10, literature. Although this valley is described as one of the quietest places in the world, its residents frequently see strange sights. One resident of this valley rides a horse named Gunpowder, and another claims to have raced a ghostly Hessian. A shattered pumpkin is found in this valley after Ichabod Crane's disappearance, which is blamed on a headless horseman. For 10 points, name the setting of a story by Washington Irving, which you all should know. Toss up number 11, math. Pencil and paper ready. Kylie needs to find the x-coordinate of the vertex of the parabola defined by the equation y equals 2x squared minus 12x plus 18. She can either convert the equation into vertex form or just factor the polynomial. Doing the latter reveals a double root which must occur at the vertex. For 10 points, find the x-coordinate of the vertex of y equals 2x squared minus 12x plus 18. Toss-up 12, science. This structure in the southern equatorial belt passes the more recently formed oval BA at about every 2 years. This structure is bounded by anti-parallel jet streams to the north and south, and its border feature separates the white aerosols around it from the colored ones within it. It has remained stable by eating smaller vortices. At least two Earths could fit in, for 10 points, what anticyclonic storm on Jupiter? Toss up 13, social studies. A Spanish invasion of this colony in 1742 was defeated at the Battle of Bloody Marsh, which was fought on St. Simon's Island. In 1751, it became the last British colony to legalize slavery. 12 years later, it expanded south of the Altamaha River due to the Treaty of Paris. A parliamentary committee on prison reform led James Oglethorpe to settle here in 1733. For 10 points, name the southernmost of the 13 colonies. Toss up 14, social studies. A skyway network called Plus 15 connects several buildings in this city, whose namesake tower is also known as Husky Tower. The Bow River passes through Fish Creek Park in this city, home to the Saddle Dome. The Queen Elizabeth II Highway runs north from this city, which in 1988 became the first Canadian city to host the Winter Olympics. For 10 points, name this most populous city in Alberta, found south of Edmonton. Toss up 15, science. This metal partially inactivates the palladium in the Linear catalyst and is purified in the Parkes process. Anglesite is an ore of this element, which has the heaviest known stable isotope. Its acetate salt, used in ancient Rome as a sweetener, is toxic, as are most of its compounds, so it is banned in gasoline and paint. For 10 points, name this heavy metal with atomic symbol Pb. Toss up 16, literature. One of this man's poems begins, "Hence vain deluding joys." This author of Il Penseroso wrote an elegy for Edward King and a sonnet beginning, "When I consider how my light is spent." In addition to Lycidas and On His Blindness, this man wrote a work in which one character describes that "'tis better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven." For 10 points, name this poet who described the fall of Lucifer in Paradise Lost. Toss up 17, social studies. This pope outlined a moral theology in Veritatis Splendor and a consistent life ethic in Evangelium Vitae. He presided over the canonization of 483 saints and apologized for Catholic persecution of Protestants and Galileo. A Spanish priest tried to assassinate him 1 year after a more serious attempt on his life by Mehmet Ali Akka in 1981. For 10 points, name this pope, the one-time Archbishop of Krakow in Poland. Toss up 18, math. A common proof that 1 equals 2 relies on this procedure. Applying the quadratic formula to a linear polynomial leads to doing this, and when evaluating a function results in this process, a vertical asymptote often results. This issue arises when computing the tangent of 90 degrees since the cosine is in the denominator. For 10 points, name this arithmetic operation whose result is undefined. Toss up 19, science. Rotifers of order Dilodia reproduce exclusively by this method. Some aphids and Komodo dragons use it. In its automictic form, a polar body, instead of degenerating, provides a second set of chromosomes. For 10 points, what is this form of asexual reproduction in which an ovum develops into an organism without fertilization by a sperm, named after the Greek for virgin birth? Toss up 20, literature. This woman hatches a scheme to obtain power of attorney after touring a flax mill. She attends a performance of Lucia de Lammermoor and borrows money excessively from Monsieur Ruhr. She lives in Yonville with her husband, a doctor, and dies after drinking arsenic. She carries on affairs with Leon and Rodolphe. For 10 points, name this romantically inclined wife of Charles who titles a novel by Gustave Flaubert. Toss up 21, fine arts. This woman is stabbed outside an arena after ignoring a warning from her friend Frasquita. She describes a night at Lilas Pastia's place in a seductive seguidilla. She first appears singing the aria Love is a rebellious bird that none can tame. Also known as habanera, Escamillo falls for this title character soon after singing the song Toreador Song. For 10 points, name this title gypsy of Georges Bizet opera. Toss up 22, literature. This man carried Hera across a river, leading his uncle to recognize him as the subject of a prophecy about a man wearing only one sandal. He and his men freed Phineus from the attacks of the Harpies. His fiancée Glauce, was killed by his previous wife, who was a niece of Circe and Princess Calchas. For 10 points, name this leader of the Argonauts who was helped by Medea in his quest for the Golden Fleece. Toss-up 23, literature. This poet contrasted listening to a lecturer with looking up in perfect silence at the stars in When I Heard the Learned Astronomer. The deathbed edition of this poet's best-known collection contains one work which declares, "What I assume, you shall assume," and another whose title character has fallen cold and dead. Song of Myself and O Captain, are poems by, for 10 points, what author of Leaves of Grass? Toss up 24. Math. Paper and pencil ready. Brandon needs to find the area of a circle that is circumscribed about a square whose area is 64. He begins by noting that the diagonals of the square also serve as diameters of the surrounding circle. By applying the area formulas for both circles and squares, he computes, for 10 points, what area for a circle circumscribed about a square whose area is 64.